not for myself, but for those without voice can be heard. Those who have fought for their rights, their right to live in peace.
Justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Hi, welcome. Welcome everybody to Rainbow Shelter News. I am your host, Ozma in the Dark, and I am here to talk about the news. I apologize for I haven't been able to do this show the past couple weeks, but we are back in line to do it some more. So, and I might be able to have a good setup so that there won't be the unnecessary break. So we are going to start out. Post at the most. Thank you, Jinx Tiamat. We are going to start out with Roe v. Wade. I just want, partially because I just want to get Roe v. Wade out of the way. So, and you might be asking, hey there, why do you want to get a major thing out of the way? Because I talked about it on Sunday for about 2 hours with the guest. I talked about it with friends on Saturday, unrelated, that wasn't filmed. And then I talked about it again yesterday on my main channel, so on the Fluid Voice, which you may or may not be watching this on. Go check out the episode. I mean, obviously, we're still going to talk about it more. I just want to get it out of the way at the start of this. Just, because I'm pretty sure there are points also that were not covered, because there's so much to talk about. So, this is how overturning of Roe v. Wade is an indictment on our government. The highest court is supposed to be removed on the whims of the politics. The highest court in the land is supposed to not only represent laws under the Constitution, but to do it justly. What is just has changed since 1787. But no matter what year, the political checkers or incorrect rulings are anything but just. But just. The ruling issued by the Supreme Court of the United States, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, was incorrect. Every reason the Supreme Court has given to ban abortions is either factually false or illegal. Because they already did 2 informative shows on Roe v. Wade you should watch. Yeah. Also, yeah, so yesterday, to some degree, the thing is, it's like a 200-page document. And I was reading it over and talking about it, because I was also talking about the Supreme Court ruling that was essentially in favor of voter ID laws, which, I mean, that's its own other problem, because states' rights, which, definitely isn't, what is that, a dog whistle for segregation? No, what? Additionally, the argument that abortions are not listed nor protected anywhere in the Constitution is false. Healthcare rights, intimacy rights, liberty and freedom rights, bodily autonomy rights, privacy rights, interstate commerce rights, gender equality rights, etc. Such an argument for abortion not being specifically mentioned in the made in the majority decision today to overturn Roe is outdated and dangerous as well. interpretation under the Constitution need not be limited to the literal reading of the document. Limiting what the Constitution or what is constitutional to the ideals, beliefs, depth of knowledge, or laws of 1787 is a death note for this country and should never be practiced. Should we limit what is constitutional to what the Constitution literally reads, a majority of laws would cease to exist. Laws such as those regulating cars and airplanes, computers, and privacy. The military and taxes, religion and free speech, and more would cease to exist. The ruling the Supreme Court issued today is wrong because it violates the court's duty to do what is best for the people of this nation and its duty to justice. Thank you, Jinx Tiamat. So, justice. Not sponsored by this channel. Justice. Sorry, I got some free justice spices a couple days ago. Saturday. No, Sunday. Same day as that episode. Anyways, Tensies is a good company from everything I've heard. The reality is now we live in a nation where one segment of our government has no checks and balances. The SCOTUS declares a law unconstitutional. A constitutional convention or amendment is needed to override the ruling. Arduous process. Yeah, it's just bad. All of the Supreme Court BS is bad, and I know I brought up a little bit of the Supreme Court stuff yesterday because if you look at early abortion laws, I think Jinx Tiamat might have pointed this out as well later about the basically when there's movement, when the baby moves, it is counted as a life or whatever. So it's not really an abortion if it's done before that. And the justice, the awful justice. I mean, so many of them are awful, but the awful justice was what that I was reading in the Supreme Court docket was like, yeah, it doesn't specifically say it, so therefore it must mean all abortions. No, it doesn't specifically say it because there was no need to specifically say it at the time period. And then also a law was brought up with regards to murdering accidentally killing someone who is pregnant. And it's like, no, this is about killing someone who's pregnant. Nothing to do with abortion. It has nothing directly to do with abortion. Indirectly, it's saying it's a worse sentence if the doctor prescribes abortion medication and it kills the patient. It's a worse sentence than not. And it was a whole mess in the Supreme Court. Awful. So, one thing I may not have gone over as much is the disability rights with relation to abortion. So, because and it makes sense because this is an attack on bodily autonomy, and bodily autonomy is like the main thing attacked with a lot of disability related rights. So disabled people already face barriers to abortion and contraception. Sex ed is not accessible. Thus, healthcare and telehealth are not accessible. Transportation is not accessible. We're more likely to live in poverty, and we are more likely to rely on the government for healthcare. Many of us are multiply marginalized. More likely to be sexually assaulted. So abortion bans do not protect disabled people. Abortion bans don't help us end eugenics. And also, I'm not sure they care. Specifically when the mother is carrying, parent is conscious or aware of internal movements. Yeah, it's very much the case. But yeah, no, the Supreme Court ruling definitely hurts all of that. This was mentioned a couple days ago because I did see this. Because Representative Mary Miller thanks Trump for historic victory for white life. Under what rock did this guy crawled out from? Sheesh. Who are you talking about? Are you talking about Trump or are you talking about me? I can't tell from that statement. Former President... You know what? I will accept. I will accept your ruling, Jinx Tiamat. Sorry. Former President Donald Trump hosted a rally at Adams County Fairgrounds in Quincy, Illinois on Saturday. He was in the state to support Congresswoman Mary Miller's re-election. Yes, of course. But yeah, so very much mask off. They want more white babies. That's the reason for banning abortion for a lot of these people. So, and not that it would help them reach that goal, but it's just, you know, heavily Christian-based white nationalism. So it is what it is. There's not a lot to say that. I didn't know about this one. So Texas Republican slammed for mentioning racial segregation ruling in response to Supreme Court's abortion decision. So the Supreme Court did a bunch of stuff to quote unquote reinforce state rights type thing. And Barack Obama said, and there's enough problems with Barack Obama, but he had just done an inane tweet. What we are not going to do is throw rocks. Fair. Well, at least aim for richer people. So the Supreme Court not only reversed nearly 50 years of precedent, it relegated most of the intensely personal decisions someone makes to the whims of politicians and ideologues, attacking the essential freedoms of millions of Americans. So, yeah, and then there's a reply that's telling the Supreme Court to be like, by Senator John Cornyn or whatever, saying, now to Plessy versus Ferguson / Brown versus Board of Education. Because so many of these senators, especially ones talking about states' rights and all that BS, they do this. They want segregation. Whether it be racial segregation, whether it be segregation between cis straight people and LGBTQ people, they want it. They just segregation of disabled people into the homes of relatives, whichever relatives will accept them, all that. So now that we're done with that, I know I said I would be quick with with the Supreme Court ruling, but that's as quick as you can be. So women less likely to get authorship on scientific publications than men, find studies. It's almost like there's discrimination. So a study published in Nature says the discrepancy is ubiquitous in all fields, especially female-dominated fields such as health, as well as male-dominated fields such as engineering. It said that the gap was particularly evident during the earliest stages of women's careers. The research further revealed that the gender discrimination was pretty much skewed in patent-related projects, where 60% of men are credited even while sharing the work with women counterparts. So, women are still being treated as you know, either dumb or just people who don't have actual autonomy. They appear to be very leave it to the men to do all the complicated sciencey work. Sort of like well, I mean, it's classic misogyny, but little bits of it bleed into culture. So, this is an important story just to lighten things up a little bit. William Dorsey Swan, a former slave, apparently became America's first drag queen. A lot of black people and people of color get cut out of far too many discussions about rights. And there is racism in the LGBTQ community. There's racism in a lot of aspects of society. Defective non-citizens if you have a uterus. That sounds about right. If you're not familiar with the name William Dorsey Swan, you should be. I wasn't familiar. So, Swan was an African American born into slavery who became America's first self-described drag queen and an originator of ballroom culture. If you don't know about ballroom culture, there's a documentary about it. It's about dancing how you want, about wearing what you want regardless of gender, being with who you want. It was essentially about a private place where people could be free. A pioneer of the queer liberation movement, Swan often put himself in danger to take a stand for queer rights. And I can't remember the person's name. I'm terrible with names. In the ending of this show, we always do stuff with we always play a clip of this one trans woman who fought for gay liberation. And it was framed that way as well. And because oftentimes, historically, it's been LGB and sometimes T, if it's convenient and not too much trouble. So Swan's impressive history was all but forgotten in the mainstream consciousness until author and journalist Channing Gerard Joseph started researching his extraordinary life in 2005. Joseph wrote a book on Swan called House of Swan, Where Slaves Became Queens. lacking in the terms we use today, like cross-dresser, transgender, and gender non-conforming. Swan and his crew were challenging gender norms, taking part in queer resistance way before the Stonewall Uprising of 1969 and other gay liberation movements. So, yeah, and there's a lot more, and there's a lot more information about Swan that should be looked into. But it's good to know, to some degree, it's good to know how long this has been going on, because some people act like this has been going on since the 80s, and they don't mean the 1880s, which is when this was going on. So, U.S. Appeals Court upholds Arkansas anti-BDS law. So, the U.S. Court of Appeals upheld an Arkansas law that restricts state contractors from boycotting Israel, raising concerns about government infringement on free speech when it comes to criticism of the abuses of the Israeli government. And the problem with this is this will make it hard to justify Palestine to do, more than one organization has regarded the Israeli government as an apartheid state. And the fact that they can't criticize the Israeli government is concerning. At the very least, state officials, state contractors, which I assume are state officials, or like governors and all that stuff. But yeah, and it is an infringement on free speech. Like, there is, so, born and raised Jewish, I'm well aware of the more discriminatory, cruel things that have been said. There is hateful stuff that is said using what the Israeli government is doing as an excuse, but there's so many movements, especially Reform Jewish movements, and which is what I was raised, Reform Judaism. Jews Against the ICE is a major one, which I haven't been actively a part of, but I've been mildly a part of. Right-wing news anchor flips out over pride flag in a profanity-filled rant. The only flag that should be held up here is the American flag, is what she said. I assume in that voice. One America News, a fashy news propaganda. To my knowledge, it's a propaganda network. Anyways, anchor Allison Steinberg posted a profanity-filled rant over the weekend sparked by a pride flag. Steinberg was also incensed by the sight of the rainbow flag flying alongside the American flag in the beachfront business district of Huntington Beach, California, that she appeared to have lost control. She says, "Guess what I came home to be greeted with? This is fucking bullshit," she says, pointing to the pride flag. What the hell is that? I mean, if she's pointing to a pride flag, I will assume that it was a pride flag. Steinberg went on to attempt to connect the flag with the town's response to the COVID pandemic. Huntington Beach is a town of good old-fashioned, hardworking American people. People work through the all through the COVID lockdown, she shouts to the camera, which is, not, unnecessary deaths are not a good thing, but obviously she doesn't understand that. Yes, that's right. Huntington Beach should never shut down through any of the COVID nonsense fuckery. And now we're peddling this garbage. She whines. Presumably whines. Not actually. This is a hyperbolic representation of what is said. What the hell is this? Steinberg continued. The only flag that should be up here is the American flag and the Confederate flag. Sorry, I just assumed Steinberg wants the Confederate flag. She did not say that the Confederate flag should be up there, but I'm assuming that she would not have the same reaction. This is a disgrace to our city. It should be taken down immediately. Whoever the hell is running this down needs to be fired. Make America great again. Make Huntington Beach great. Steinberg initially posted the video to her Instagram account. It has since been removed, but one Twitter user reposted it. But yeah, it's some people do not deal well with LGBTQ stuff. They get real butthurt, and she's definitely Allison Steinberg is definitely one of those people who gets butthurt seeing any pride thing. But sure, they're not snowflakes, So this is one I'm not sure how to feel about it. So, mother of LAPD officer killed in training accident claims he was beaten in exercise meant to stimulate the mob. Now, the crueler part of me wants to laugh at this because I find it funny. I know the police have been doing a lot of awful things. No state flag, no POW. Is an MIA flags, really? Sure. Yeah, the mother of LAPD so it is kind of funny to see the police in their brutality actually hurt themselves to some degree. But on the other hand, it is not good for someone to unnecessarily be killed like this. But they are a police officer, and I don't know how good of a person they were. I'm always suspicious of police officer in terms of good. So wrongful death and civil rights violation. Okay, tipping, 5-year apartment veteran died, training accident. So, back in May, the LAPD shed light on Tipping's death, claiming that he suffered a catastrophic spinal cord injury during a training exercise. At the time of the accident, Officer Tipping was a bike instructor engaged in a training scenario involving grappling with another officer, the LAPD said in a statement. During the scenario, Officer Tipping fell to the floor and suffered a catastrophic spinal cord injury. Tipping's mother alleged her son was repeatedly struck in the head enough that he bled during an activity that simulated a mob attack, and he suffered multiple breaks in his neck, which caused his death. The department could not comment on the claim, launched its own investigation of the incident, which means very little. But yeah, Yeah, the police are far too problematic. So, in other news, video shows a woman verbally accosting and pepper spraying a group of Asian women because there is still anti-Asian hate here in America. Madeline Barker, a Florida woman who allegedly used pepper spray on a group of Asian women in New York City, faces several hate crime charges, CBS News reports. According to the New York Police Department, Barker got into verbal altercation with a group of women and made anti-Asian statements before pepper spraying them on June 11th. The woman told ABC 7 New York that they were walking in the area when Barker accused them of harassing her. They explained they had no prior interactions with her and tried to calm her down by apologizing. Then they said that Barker pulled out a can of pepper spray and sprayed them while yelling, "Go back to where you came from. You don't belong here." A police spokesperson said Barker also yelled at an Asian man passing by, demanding that he, quote unquote, take all your bitches back where you came from. The women who were attacked refused medical attention. Understandable, because medicine is far too pricey. But yeah, it was also caught on video, which I will not play. Speaking of racism, family seeks a new trial after teen gets 140-year sentence for 2021 killing. So the family of Damian Mitchell is demanding a new trial after she received a 140-year prison sentence for manslaughter. Mitchell is ultimately convicted of gang-related charges as well as voluntary manslaughter and aggravated assault. The 4 others also charged in the killing were reportedly sentenced to 10 years in prison after accepting plea deals. But this person, Damian Mitchell's, was sentenced to 140 years. During the trial, prosecutors accused Mitchell of being affiliated with the Nine Trey gangster Blood Street Gang. However, Will and her family insists the gang allegations were simply untrue. Affiliate gang members, she's not in a gang. Basically, they're saying you'll never see daylight again in your life. They want my baby to die in jail for something that's false and bogus. Sorry. Yeah. I was gonna say, I assume she's black, partially because of the news source, and partially because 140 years in prison is cruel, excessive, and cruel and unusual. And cruel and unusual punishment is not constitutional. And although given the Supreme Court, yeah. So, on a lighter note, Marjorie Taylor Greene rails that the Department of Justice won't prosecute people who put stickers on her anti-trans sign. I feel very unsafe. I felt my life was in danger because of the stickers. The stickers were attacking me everywhere, said Marjorie Taylor Greene. Actually, only the I felt unsafe, I felt my life in danger. It was actually said by her. The rest was just me being silly. She said about sticker put on her sign. She forgot about the time she vandalized AOC's office and terrorized her staff during a crusade to paint herself as a victim. She also threatened AOC by saying that I think Marjorie Taylor Greene's the one who's like said something about wanting to carry a gun around so she can shoot AOC or something to that effect. I can't, it might not have been her. It could have been one of the other far-right Republicans. But I thought it was her, because, yeah. So she railed against mistreatment she claims to have received from as a freshman member of Congress, and the crimes she said have been committed against her. Specifically, she says the Department of Justice has refused to prosecute the staffer who has repeatedly vandalized a transphobic sign outside of her office. Green, who vehemently opposes LGBTQ rights, posted a sign that says there are two genders, male and female, trust the science. Which Marjorie Taylor Greene, look, if you're taking scientific advice from Marjorie Taylor Greene, don't. She thinks about there's Jewish space lasers out there causing wildfires. I would not trust scientific advice from her. Posters outside her office, on a wall facing the office of Representative Mary Newman. Newman, a sponsor of the Equality Act, whose daughter is trans, posted a trans pride flag outside her office in February of 2021. I remember that. Shortly after that, Green posted her sign, which read, "There are two genders, male and female, trust the science." Oh, it actually said it. I didn't need to click it. Green claims the sign was attacked 11 times. After demanding that surveillance cameras be installed to monitor it, she now says that Capitol Police have identified Representative Jake Auchenlos, whatever. It looks German in origin. That's probably not how it's being pronounced, because a lot of German names have been Americanized, which really frustrated me when I was learning German. And then like a couple years later, I have an English teacher and they call themselves Wagner, and I'm like, that's clearly Wagner, and Wagner sounds way cooler than Wagner. Just ignore this anti-Semitism part of Wagner. Anyways, Chief of Staff, Representative Jake Auchenlos, Chief of Staff Tim Heisem as the vandal. So Tim Heisem is the vandal, someone who works with a representative, and referred him for criminal charges. So far, according to Green, the DOJ has declined to press charges against Heisem. Green says she demands surveillance cameras to be installed to monitor her sign because someone stuck a sticker of Jesus on it saying, "I never knew you, Marjorie Taylor Greene." I mean, fair. The mainstream media launched a vicious campaign against me, claiming that I attacked her, but in truth, she attacked me. And I just stood my ground defending the truth, she tweeted on Tuesday. My sign then attacked 11 times in total, but her flag 0. Yeah, it's because nobody likes you, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And you're a bitch. I felt very unsafe. The sticker of Jesus, it scared me. Sorry, I felt very unsafe is the only thing that she said. I felt my life was in danger, which is not anything any reasonable person would feel with regards to a sticker of Jesus. A sticker of Jesus saying, "I don't know you, Marjorie Taylor Greene." Has been defaced with stickers that say things like, "I never knew you, Marjorie Taylor Greene," with a picture of Jesus. Heisem allegedly left a sticker that said, Pharisee is as Pharisee knows. Pharisee is a biblical reference to Jewish officials that placed higher value on religious rules created by man than the souls of the believers. But yeah, it's very... My life is in danger when, you know... Marjorie Taylor Greene is not going to be given a 140-year sentence for manslaughter. So, masked Proud Boys terrorize kids at Library Pride event as cops give them fist bumps. So there's a reason people have the assumption that all cops are bastards. And that reason is stuff like this. So 15 men wearing masks were escorted inside the building by deputies who stood by as the Proud Boys shouted, "Bring out the drag queens," and hurled slurs at children. She wants late-night comedians arrested for threats, too. Oh, that doesn't surprise me that Marjorie Taylor Greene would want that. Members of Cape Fear Proud Boys staged a demonstration outside a local library in Wilmington, North Carolina on Tuesday, where a Pride-themed storytime event was being held. The 15 masked men, wearing the violent far-right group's trademark black and yellow shirts, were allowed into the library during the event by New Hanover County Sheriff's Office deputies. "I certainly felt like I was in danger when they entered the building," Emily Jones, a parent who attended the event with her 17-month-old daughter, told Wilmington's Star News Online. According to the statement from the sheriff's office, the deputy positioned himself between the demonstrators and the private rooms where 4 parents and 6 children under the age of 7 had gathered for the event. The supervisor instructed the demonstrators that they were not allowed to enter the room, the statement said. At no time did the sheriff's deputies witness, nor did any library staff report any of the demonstrators causing a disturbance within the library or try to enter the private rooms that was holding the reading. After the reading, all the participants left the library with no incident. New Hanover County's Chief Diversity and Equity Officer, Linda Thompson, claims that the protesters did not enter the building until the Pride event had ended. But witnesses dispute this account. Several of the parents who attended have taken to Facebook describing taunts and threats from demonstrators as deputies stood by. Deputies were overly friendly with the masked vigilantes, witnesses say, going so far as to fist bump the hate group members. This has happened on camera before, stuff like this. There have been Pride events where like there's been, what was it? There's like a famous one with, it was either a Pride event or a Black Lives Matter protest where police were chumming it up with neo-Nazis, either pissing on a Pride flag or pissing on a Jewish flag, an Israeli flag, whatever. Jones reported seeing protesters in plain clothes holding up signs that read, "LGBT is grooming our kids, and the library is responsible for child abuse," when she arrived. Once the Proud Boys members were allowed into the library, they reportedly stationed themselves outside the locked rooms where the event was taking place and shouted, "Bring out the drag queens, bring out the drag queens." Yelled at me, yelled at my kids, told my kids they were going to hell. Another parent who wished to remain anonymous told Wilmington WWA3, they told me I was a child abuser. They quoted scripture. We were escorted inside by a library employee. In a Facebook post, Angie Smith Caney writes that she saw officers escort the Proud Boys and their clan into the building, straight to the room where the children as young as 1 were with their parents, and they shouted obscenities and threats. Another witness, Sandra Dunn, writes that she watched these protesters scream at young children and their families as they exited the building. Sheriffs allowed these people to stand within feet of young children and scream at them. Earlier this month, the Anti-Defamation League linked the recent spat of far-right extremist groups targeting private events to both racist and anti-LGBTQ rhetoric that has been proliferated online. The ADL Center on Extremism reported 7 instances of the far-right groups targeting the LGBTQ community during the event of June 11th to 12th alone. Yeah, it's and by the way, technically not all police are bastards. There are I can't remember if it was Proud Boys or another neo-Nazi group, but they got arrested because they were going to cause trouble at a pride event. It's just there's no proper regulation. So, a Washington state man arrested after threatening mass slaughter of LGBTQ people. A queer neighbor said Dinsmore shouted that it used to be legal to kill gay people at her, and then it got worse. A man in Oak Harbor, Washington, was arrested last week after reportedly posting on social media about his desire to kill LGBTQ people and shouting threatening rhetoric at his neighbors. Tyler Dinsmore had posted threats focused on the June 18th Anna Court's Pride Parade, asking followers to talk me out of it. Thank you, Matt. Let me... Yeah. He's also recently posted they might not make it through this fucking month, and that he was 9 millimeters away from Fed posting to F-slur at Home Depot yesterday. According to Seattle's Kiro 7 News, a neighbor reported the 27-year-old to local police after he shouted at her and her wife it used to be legal to kill gay people. She later spotted Dinsmore wearing a handgun at his hip. Another neighbor claimed that Dinsmore, who's white, had once pointed a gun at the neighbor's black nephew. Wait, is that... I know we did an episode of Rainbow Shelter News about someone pointing a... no, that was a white kid. This is an adult. He'll keep accusing me of homophobia. Damn right, God says they won't end to be taken in stride. Of course he does. Yeah, he lots of threatening stuff. Arrested. Yeah. So, Lil Nas X posted something else previously because he was not in the BET Awards. A white dude who worked with Lil Nas X was in the BET Awards. But Lil Nas X wasn't in the BET Awards, because apparently the BET Award, even though Lil Nas X did the main part of the song, which suggests that the BET Awards hates gay men more than they like black people, which is a problem. Because it's the BET Awards. BET Awards shouldn't, like... Anyways, Lil Nas X claims BET made him confirm he's not a Satanist, and called same-sex kiss fucked up, which... God, they have good abs. Anyways, Lil Nas X has detailed his painful history with the BET Awards, alleging that he was met with absurd demands before his performance at the awards show in 2021. The BET Awards took place Saturday night with a notable absence. Lil Nas X did like record-selling album, super well known. Weird to not have him on. So while the show celebrates and honors the best in black entertainment, Lil Nas X was nowhere to be seen, having boycotted the awards show after he was snubbed from its nominations entirely. Lil Nas X has already called out the snub, but hours before the 22 ceremony began, the star and his team made a series of disturbing allegations against the organizers. In a statement to the Rolling Stone, the rapper explained that relations between his camp and BET became strained ahead of his performance at the awards show last year. He alleged that he was asked by BET to confirm he's not a Satanist after he gave Satan a lap dance in Montero. Great lap dance, by the way. But my relation with BET has been painful and strained for quite some time, he wrote. It didn't start with this year's nominations, and most people might think. They did let me perform the show last year, but only after I gave assurances that I was not a Satanist or a devil worshiper, and that my performance would be appropriate for their audience, whatever that means. An anonymous member of Lil Nas X team added, the response we got from BET was, we need to clarify a few things. Is he a Satanist? Are there going to be elements of devil worship or Satan in the show? I was so taken aback by it. After the BET... Lil Nas X likes to troll with stuff like this. After BET live performance, which Lil Nas X kissed one of his male backup dancers, some producers were reportedly upset. Because nothing makes people more upset than kissing. I know I can't find any clips, I'm sure, anywhere on the internet of people kissing in award show or performances. This definitely wasn't like homophobic discrimination against Lil Nas X. No. What? But yeah, Black Entertainment Awards, which is why they nominated a white person in a Lil Nas X song, but wouldn't nominate Lil Nas X. It's just kind of like, I'm white, and that's starting to get to me. At some point after Lil Nas X got off stage, one of the BET producers came up to me, and before I could even open my mouth, he looked at me and said, that was really fucked up. Disagree. BET has denied Lil Nas X and his team's version of events, saying this summation of events around Lil Nas X's 2021 BET Awards performance is simply untrue. Spokesperson added, since last year's performance, we have been in touch to work on other projects. We're still excited about his previous performances and continue to wish him well. But today, we're focused on culture's biggest night and delivering history-making moments for fans worldwide. Yeah, it's you don't award someone a white person who. A white dude who works on a Lil Nas X song, and Lil Nas X has made so much history, and be like, no, this person shouldn't be in the awards. It's so short-sighted, and it just feels like they care more about the cishet norms than they care about helping black people. Wait, I'm gonna save this one for after this one. Changing stuff around. So lawyers of former Tesla worker turned down reduced $15 million racism lawsuit payout. So lawyers for a former elevator operator at Tesla have rejected a $15 million award in a racism lawsuit after, as previously reported, it was cut down from the original verdict amount of nearly $137 million. In a statement shared with Reuters on Tuesday, lawyers Owen Diaz, whose original suit was filed back in 2017, noted that their client was requesting a new trial. In rejecting the court's excessive rejection by asking for a new trial, Mr. Diaz is again asking a jury of his peers to evaluate what Tesla did to him to provide compensation for the torrent of racist slurs that were directed at him, his lawyer said. So, if you didn't know it, and if you aren't a Tesla fanboy, I assume it's mostly boys, it's Tesla, founded by Elon Musk, a person who grew up in apartheid South Africa and definitely, can't prove that he's super racist. Just his company is filled with racists. Not a red flag, right? So announcing a filing of the race discrimination class action lawsuit against Tesla in November 2017, the California civil rights group said the company had failed to take appropriate action in response to multiple complaints of racist harassment at its Fremont facility. Last October, a jury found Tesla to be liable for harassing, including what California civil rights group said was near daily use of the N-word. Directed at Diaz, who worked in a factory as a contracted elevator operator at the time. The final jury award was $136.9 million in damages, however, was later reduced by a federal judge to $15 million. At the time, the judge argued that the original jury award marked what he considered to be unconstitutionally large amount, ultimately knocking compensatory damages down to $1.5 million and punitive damages down to $13.5 million. But yeah, it's Elon Musk is a jerk and Tesla sucks. That said, it's hard not to take some joy in a multi-billionaire jerkface who having this happen. Elon Musk's trans daughter petitions court to change name and sever ties with her transphobic father, because of course Elon Musk is transphobic. Of course. 18-year-old daughter wrote in court filings that she no longer wishes to be related to my biological father in any way, shape, or form. The 18-year-old daughter of billionaire transphobe. Wait, appears to be linking to something. I absolutely support trans, but all these pronouns are an aesthetic, anti-pronoun stuff. It's just the typical trans is a fad. Who wants to take the last name of her mother? She never publicly discussed their relationship or her gender identity. Musk himself has a habit of tweeting transphobic messages. After posting 2 tweets mocking pronouns in 2020, Musk wrote in December 2020, "I absolutely support trans, but all these pronouns are an aesthetic nightmare." In his tweet, he misspelled aesthetic, but didn't specify which pronouns most offend his artistic sensibilities. When news as ex-partner Grimes had begun a relationship with Chelsea Manning, Musk posted a digitally altered image of what looked like a pregnant man saying under the words, "Netflix waiting for the war to end to make a movie about a black Ukrainian guy falls in love with a trans Russian soldier." During his recent appearance at Qatar Economic Forum, Musk said he was undecided whether he'd support former President Donald Trump in the 2024 election. And yeah, if you have a parent who says all that, I understand why you'd want to change your name. So, it's not the waiting, it's the indignity. Disabled passengers tell of air travel torment. Which, I mean, air travel has been awful, continues to be awful, and is awful for the foreseeable future. The passengers with disability or reduced mobility are legally entitled to special assistance when traveling by air, but with airports and airlines required to provide help and assistance free of charge. Recent experiences suggest that support is not always available and can't be relied on, like how many wheelchairs have been destroyed by airlines. So, a wheelchair user with muscular dystrophy has said she was left traumatized and humiliated after special assistance was slow or non-existent at 2 separate UK airports. So I guess this is not just an American problem. Pronouns make Twitter bios so hard to read. I know. I mean, you see pronouns and explanation, so you know how to refer to someone, and it's just like, but why can't I assume? And then anti-trans Twitter stuff with anime chicks wondering why people don't default to he him pronouns, but also argue that pronouns are not a good thing. Someone who has trapped nerves in her back and cannot walk properly waited for 2 hours at Birmingham Airport recently, only to be eventually told that her 1,300-pound scooter had gone missing. "How can they lose a bright red mobility scooter?" said Bland, a former nurse. She was told by airport staff that the scooter had gone missing after she landed at 2:40 a.m. on a Sunday morning. "I had to go home without it. Without that scooter, I'm housebound." People always talk about, people use the horrible term wheelchair bound, but that's not how things work. Wheelchairs provide actual autonomy to some degree. A lot of people are genuinely housebound. A lot of disabled people who need wheelchairs are housebound without them. Since returning home, this person called the airport nearly 60 times, but no one is answering the telephones. No landline, 2 mobiles from the airport, and there's no answer. I've been directed to file a complaint, directed to claim on my travel insurance, ring an assistance department, which directs me to file a complaint and then cuts me off. Tried calling 58 times so far and got no response at all. But yeah, it looks like person I know who is wheelchair user was denied their wheelchair on every layover on a recent trip. Yeah. No, this is definitely a problem, possibly worldwide. I don't know. I think I covered an India story. Definitely UK. Obviously, because I didn't realize this was a bunch of UK topics. I would have moved it later. But this was about you, because I already know US air travel's awful. He had filed to have it in advance. So, disability in Hollywood. How advocates are changing the landscape. So it was Catherine Beatty's first assistant job in Hollywood, and she wanted to make a good impression. She ran errands, answered calls and emails. She did what showrunners' assistants do, and all the while without disclosing her disability. One day, after being on her feet for hours on end, something difficult to do for Beatty, who is born with cerebral palsy, she sat down to rest. I got yelled for sitting. Instead of standing up for myself and saying, I need to sit because I have a disability and can't stand for that long, I internalized it and believed I could never rest. So that was obviously very tiring. Cerebral palsy is a very broad group that affect a person's ability to move and maintain balance and posture, but it has a spectrum. Some people's entire body is affected by cerebral palsy, while others might only have a limb or two impacted. For most of Beatty's life, she was able to walk and conceal her disability, but as she got older, it became more difficult to hide. And some of the reason for that may have been all the effort she put into forcing herself to work harder with that. But yes, again, so in her late 20s, she got a job on CBS NCIS New Orleans. For the first time, she revealed her disability professionally. She had to after finding out her office was on the second floor. She was pleasantly surprised by the show's acceptance and accommodations, progressing from assistant to staff writer. When NCIS New Orleans was canceled, she was staffed on CBS NCIS. But although 1 in 4 people are disabled in the United States and over 1 billion people are disabled worldwide, the representation of disabled people in the entertainment industry, both on and behind the screen, is sorely lacking, which is true. Usually they get non-disabled people to play disabled characters. Fewer than 25% of characters in the media are depicted as disabled. And those who are typically played by a non-disabled actor, yeah. So, since the 1980s, there's been a paradigm shift towards authentic disability representation. Now, if we're talking about films that I know have authentic disability representation, ones that come to mind, I'm a fan of, what's the name of that film? It won awards and stuff. Oh, I am the worst, apparently. Car film. Oh, fuck. I'm just remembering the only person I can remember who is in it is Kevin Spacey, and that's like the worst person in it. Baby Driver. Baby Driver had thank you, Jinx Tiamat. Yes, Baby Driver had a deaf person, a black deaf actor play a deaf character, which also helped with regards to some of the sign language. And the director listened to the disabled person, which is not always the case with stuff. I know there's a deaf character who has barely any role in Eternals. There's a minor character played by a deaf actor in Dune. There's because deaf Harkonnens aren't affected by the Bene Gesserit controlling voice thing. But anyway, Williamson became immersed in the world of disability about a decade after her son Blair was born in 1979 with Down syndrome. After he was born, I could walk into a restaurant with him on my hip, and there was silence because people just weren't used to seeing a baby with Down syndrome and at a restaurant. I remember one time I was at Universal Studios and I had him in a backpack on my back. Woman came up to me and said, I had one of those at home. And I said, a backpack? And she said, no, a child like that, but I live in South Africa. We don't take them out in public. Which, I mean, discrimination in South Africa? Who would have known? But, Blair was around 10 years old. The show Life Goes On premiered, featuring Chris Burke, an actor with Down syndrome, as the first time Williamson remembered seeing a person with Down syndrome on television. I first told Blair, you're going to grow up to be like Corky, the nickname of the character that Burke played. You're going to want to watch this, Williamson said. He replied with, no, my Down syndrome will go away. Daddy went away, and my brother went away. Oh. That's harsh. Oh, daddy's went away and my brother's went. Yeah, that's how Down syndrome. Anyway, I realized I hadn't shown my son role models of adults with Down syndrome, and he wasn't seeing himself represented on TV and films he watched until this character. So Williamson started to get disabled child actors, and then started to get disabled actors into media, and a bunch of people worked together. I don't know how much more to say, and I didn't realize this story was as long as it was and as in depth. This is from the news story. Let me copy this one. That news story is the one. It goes into more detail. So, good entertainment related stuff. Samuel L. Jackson blasts Clarence Thomas after the justice calls to overturn a ruling for same-sex marriage. How is Uncle Clarence? Oh. How is Uncle Clarence feeling about overturning Loving v. Virginia? Samuel Jackson went on Friday to speak out against Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who voted in favor of eliminating access to abortion while also calling to overturn the rights of same-sex marriage and contraception. Tweeted on Friday, Jackson wondered if Thomas would use the same precedent to overturn 1967 Loving v. Virginia ruling, which protects interracial marriages. The actor's tweet is subtly referring to Thomas's own interracial marriage to his wife, Ginny Thomas. Jackson dubbed the Supreme Court justice as Uncle Clarence, for obvious reasons. According to HuffPost, Thomas didn't mention the Loving case when calling for other human rights laws to be overturned. But I'm not sure he needs to. But yeah, that gave Samuel L. Jackson more points in my book. I mean, and I realized they should have had so even though they didn't have Thomas's wife full name is Virginia, which is funny. That's funny. But yeah. So one of the things is I need to change the Nightbot settings to be a bit more spaced out, but that's beside the point. That's a separate thing. So one of the things is also Samuel L. Jackson played, so the character wasn't played by a schizophrenic actor, but Samuel L. Jackson played a schizophrenic character in Something Valentine. The character was a person, the main character was a person who had schizophrenia and tried to humanize it. Humanize the character, humanize the nature of schizophrenia, and just make it it was like a detective story to some degree, but also other stuff. Caveman's Valentine. Great movie. From what I remember, like I said, despite them not having necessarily accurate representation, it is not portraying mental illness as being an inherently good or bad thing. Now, there may be some pitying aspects that I'm just not processing it because I haven't seen it for 20 years, but yeah, it's easy to win over my heart with movies like that. So Canada. Oh, Canada, the bastards on our shore. From every, I can't believe there's more. Anyway, sorry. Canada may legalize euthanasia for people with mental illness. So Canada is on track to expand eligibility for euthanasia to people with mental illness. An expert panel released its final report on the topic last month. If you don't see a problem with this, just factor in the fact that if you're depressed and you're suicidal, most suicidal stuff is temporary. Suicidal ideation is not ongoing and all the time sort of thing. So this is saying, if you're suicidal, well, they can give you a guaranteed death here. In Canada, our great neighbors up north. Canada's not a perfect country. But yeah, the panel studied the issue of euthanasia for those whose sole medical condition is mental illness. The complemented Bill C7, which expanded access to euthanasia, which Canadians termed in medical assistance in dying. Way to be vague, Canada. Yeah. In March 2021, to people whose death is not imminent. So, no one's surprised. The panel concluded that it was appropriate to extend MAID to people with mental illness. It acknowledged their risks, but you know, they're disabled folks, so they don't matter. Sorry. But in permitting MAID, Canadian society no longer requires everyone to accept that life is a benefit in all circumstances. Life should be a benefit in most circumstances. And if it isn't, that's a problem with society. Anyways, a number of doctors and legal scholars opposed the conclusions of the report. including Trudeau Lemon wrote on Impact Ethics blog. But yeah, no, this is bad. This is very bad. This is Canada reinforcing eugenics for disabled people. There's a problem in America and Canada, but which is why there have been arguments against medically assisted suicide, or in Canada's case, medical assistance in dying. But the point is, it's a genuine problem because of it. People who have shitty aspects to life and are shamed by society are the ones asking to die. And that's more a problem of society that should not be. Those attitudes should not be forced on people. And yeah. So, back in the UK, we talked about air travel in the UK. But now it's off to talk about the other awful stuff in the UK. Lawrence Fox temporarily suspended from Twitter after posting an LGBTQ swastika. So, Lawrence Fox was temporarily suspended from Twitter because, of course, he was only temporarily suspended from Twitter because he's white. After creating a swastika from LGBTQ Progress Pride flag. You can call the UK flag a symbol of fascism and totalitarianism. On Twitter, you cannot criticize the holy flags, and then showing the pride flags. And then he made a swastika with pride flags. He went out of his way to try and make a swastika with pride flags, so this person's awful. The tweets tonight from Lawrence Fox are truly disgusting. But yeah, it said India ability, which India's ability's got own problems, but Lawrence Fox quote tweeted some different things saying, waiting for the wokies to have a meltdown about this. See, these are people who don't have real issues and who are laughing at people who do have real issues. Because Lawrence Fox is a cuntbag. So, the Department for Work and Pensions ignored leading academics after they published hugely alarming research that linked work capability assessments with 600 suicides in just 3 years. 600 people in Great Britain killed themselves because of work capability assessments. So the failure is the latest evidence showing how the DWP ignored and covered up warnings about safety of its disability benefits assessment system over the last decade. Professor Bauer was one of the team who published groundbreaking research in 2015 that concluded that the government's program to reassess people on incapacity benefit through the work capability assessment was linked to about 600 suicides in just 3 years. For every 10,000 claimants who were reassessed in England between 2010 and 2013, there were 6 suicides, additional 6 suicides. 2,700 cases of self-reported mental health issues, and increase of more than 7,000 number of antidepressants prescribed. It's almost like the British government doesn't care about disabled people. I know, shock. So, also related to disabled people in work. Tens of thousands of disabled staff are quote unquote, managed out of jobs. So research concluded that the Equality Act was failing to live up to its potential, with many employers failing to create inclusive workspaces, or workplaces, sorry. They heard that the time taken to implement a reasonable adjustment can range from 10 minutes to several years, with one disabled employee being placed on gardening leave for 2 years while their employer obtained a particular type of mouse for their computer. The researchers carried out 38 in-depth interviews with disabled people, representatives of disabled people's organizations, employers, unions, and the government, the private sector, and lawyers. So there are a couple of reports. One of the people was managed out of a job by a previous employer due to its quote-unquote shocking failure to make the reasonable adjustments that were requested. The research doesn't understand why reasonable adjustments are so often not being put into place. Among the key barriers it found were the government's access to work and disability confident disability employment schemes. The researchers also found that disabled people's experience of employment tribunals was quote-unquote frequently traumatizing, while it was often quote-unquote prohibitively expensive to secure the legal support needed to take discrimination cases. Some of the report's strongest criticisms are reserved for DWP's access to work and disability confidence schemes, which relate to some of the previous stuff. So on brighter news, a lot of elite gay athletes are coming out to normalize gay footballers coming out. When Jake Daniels came out earlier this year, the Blackpool FC player became the first openly gay top-tier footballer in England in 3 decades. Daniels is supported by teammates. Despite liberal social attitudes towards LGBT plus issues in many countries in the continent, there is still only a tiny number of professional male athletes in team sports who feel like they can be fully open about their sexual identity. I think it's great that a young person has come out. I have friends in their 20s, and they are completely different from my experience of being that age. They just know themselves. They know who they are. They know their place in the world. Part of it is, if you're a gay footballer, what are you going to do in terms of research to prepare for coming out? Are you going to become familiar with Justin Fashionu's story, even if you weren't aware of it before? And that kind of thing is going to have an effect, I'm sure. As a person, but they're encouraging signs in rugby in terms of coming out does not mean the end of a career or being shunned by fans and teammates. This week, scrum half Nick McCarthy, who plays professionally for Leinster in Ireland, came out as gay, having told his teammates and coaches earlier in the year. So gay men in sports teams, Germany's first gay rugby club, Berlin Bruisers, have been playing for nearly a decade and started off just staging friendly matches against local teams. It took them 2 years to approach the regional league to ask to officially join. Finnish hockey player came out after retiring. But yeah, there's a lot more coming out, and that's the visibility is helpful. So the UN has penalized whistleblowers, and there are apparently tons of sex abuse claims. So, shocking revelations in documentary. No more shielding for rapists is what's on the picture. New documentary claims that the United Nations employees were fired after reporting claims of sexual abuse made by coworkers, since the organization is alleged to be riddled with corruption. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has been called to form an impartial panel to look into allegations that some women there have been accosted and raped. He'd also been requested to address a culture in which senior employees are allegedly shielded from complaints filed through official channels. The BBC documentary The Whistleblowers Inside the UN explores claims of sexual abuse management, covering up misconduct and corruption. Whistleblower Peter Gallo stated in the documentary, "I worked as an investigator in the UN's New York headquarters for 4 years, and as a result of that encounter, I'm convinced that corruption permeates every level of the organization." He described an instance in which a senior employee voiced concerns during a meeting after a female coworker had sobbedly? Must be a British thing. Well, yeah, they would use British English and Indian network. Anyway, sorry. Indian news source. Approached him and accused him of a sexual assault. According to Mr. Gala, the complaints were dropped because the accused was a quote-unquote favorite son. A third of the workers reported being the victims of sexual harassment. Yeah, this is yeah, then there are a lot of awful men. Finally, we reach our main story, the reason for the title of this episode. The FINA has voted to restrict the participation of trans athletes in elite women's competitions and create a working group to establish a quote-unquote open category for them in some events as part of its new policy. Here's an explanation of what the policy is and FINA's reasoning behind the change. I know the reasoning. Trans women won a competition. Therefore, gotta get rid of them. FINA officials said the aim of the policy is to ensure fair competition in women's races. Sure. FINA cites scientific evidence that males who transition to being women retain physical advantages despite undergoing HRT and testosterone injection as a part of the treatment. Yeah, that's not. There isn't a lot of actual evidence to back that up, but sure. By 14 years or older, the difference between boys and girls is substantial. That doesn't matter. That's due to experience blah blah. It's testosterone. And this person's saying, and the possession of the Y chromosome. That's not how the human body works. Y chromosome is negligible. It's mostly testosterone. Testosterone is usually the biggest factor, which I understand why you might need to classify people based off testosterone in a similar way you classify people based off weight. That might not have to be the case, but it's just a thought. Said Dr. Sandra Hunter, an exercise physiologist who is part of FINA's panel looking into the issue. The physical advantages are structural in origin, such as height, limb length, heart size, lung size, will be retained, even with the suppression and reduction of testosterone that occurs in transition. So height can change, doesn't necessarily always change. Limb length is not always an advantage. So these things... The reason why I will always be of the position that there are a lot of advantages and there are a lot of potential advantages and there are a lot of potential disadvantages. And we can't just be like, oh, these are advantages, but like not factor in things like weight. So the average trans woman's going to have in the same weight category will have less muscle for the same weight because of the structural things, and that works against people in terms of speed. There are a lot of other factors. Usually it's stuff like this where it's just like, no, we don't want trans women in sports. We don't want, and then it's like, because of, you know, quote unquote biological advantages. Oh, we don't want puberty blockers, even though those would get rid of those alleged biological advantages because, you know, experts don't actually know what they're talking about or whatever. Yes. So, new eligibility policy for FINA competition state that trans women swimmers are eligible to compete in women's competitions if they can establish to FINA comfortable satisfaction that they have not experienced any part of male puberty beyond enter stage 2 of puberty or before age 12, whichever is later. So, Tanner stage 2 is the second 5 stages of puberty in the puberty timetables. To start including genital development, growth of hair on penis and underarms, and increase in height, which can bring growing pains. I mean, it's not like they're tall women, and they're women who experience some of these effects. Was the policy for trans men? So, yeah, trans men, there's no physical advantage gained according to them, but like, how are trans men competing? If men have some sort of magical physical advantage that's not negated by disadvantages, how are trans men competing with men? How are trans men competing with cis men? It should be impossible. It should be literally impossible by their reasoning for trans men to compete with cis men. But that happens. So clearly there is something that they are not factoring in here, and they don't care about that. But yeah, it's just all athletes must certify their chromosomal sex with their National Swimming Federation in order to be eligible for FINA competitions. That means Caster Semenya, if she was a swimmer, would not be eligible for FINA competitions. She's a cis woman who happens to be XY. So what? She's not going to be allowed because of what the secret advantages that were never cut. Like, what are you trying to do? Well, I know what you're trying to do, but like, this is bullshit. So, they have an open category, but like, the problem is there is real potential because trans men would dominate that. So and cis men if it's completely open. Are more likely to dominate that. So it's essentially they want to get rid of trans women from sports. Everything they've listed are ways to get rid of trans women and intersex women from sports. U-based campaign group Athlete Allies said the policy is deeply discriminatory, harmful, unscientific, and out of line with the stance of the International Olympic Committee. The eligibility criteria for the women's category is laid out in the policy, police the bodies of all women and will not be enforceable without seriously violating the privacy and human rights of any athlete looking to compete in the women's category. So, Olympic diving champion Tom Daley furious over FINA trans ruling. Olympic diving champion Tom Daley says he's furious at governing body FINA's decision to restrict participation of trans athletes in elite women's competitions. Daley, who came out as gay in 2013, was speaking at the British LGBT Awards on Friday, where he was named Sports Personality of the Year after winning gold in the 10-meter synchronized platform diving event at the Tokyo Olympics. Trans rights has become a major talking point as sports seek to balance inclusivity while ensuring there's no quote-unquote unfair advantage. Which... it was furious, he said of the FINA's decision, which bans athletes who have been through any part of male puberty from elite women's competition. You know, like most queer people, anyone that's told they can't compete or can't do something they love just because of who they are, it's not on, the 28-year-old told iNews. It's something I feel really strongly about, giving trans people the chance to share their side. World Athletics and FIFA are among a number of governing bodies reviewing their guidelines about the involvement of trans athletes following FINA's ruling, which is the strictest by any sports body or whatever. While FINA allegedly engaged leading scientists and experts with its rules advocates, well, I mean, it's wrong. It's scientifically wrong. Tennis great Martina Navratilova slams IOC for lack of leadership on trans stuff. So tennis great and gay rights trailblazer Martina Navratilova has slammed the International Olympic Committee for its lack of leadership on the issue of the inclusion of trans athletes in sports. The issue was brought into focus by last week's decision by swimming governing body FINA to ban athletes who have been through any part of male puberty from elite women's competition. IOC last year revised its guidelines on inclusion with new framework advising athletes should not be excluded from the competition on the grounds of quote-unquote perceived unfair advantages, but leaving it up to sports federations to decide the rules. Navratilova said that striking the balance between inclusion and fairness down to individual events was extremely complex, and the IOC had offloaded responsibility for the issue onto sometimes poorly funded federations. The IOC has completely punted, the 59 times Grand Slam champion told the Australian newspaper that, we will leave it up to the individual federations. How can these individual federations within their country make their different rules? They have to do research and the implementation, and it costs money to then figure out, and it's impossible. So it's World Swim effectively banned trans women from competing in women's sports starting Monday. So, Matt saying everyone should transition by age 11. That's ridiculous. You can't transition by age in most countries, and hopefully you wouldn't be encouraged. Basically what they're saying is it's not feasible for people to have transitioned to compete without having an advantage. Just bullshit. Yeah, this just pissed me off because it's just like one person wins. So the problem is FINA's decision can prompt other sporting bodies to follow their footsteps, with the likes of FIFA and World Athletics planning to review it, because it was just bullshit. Nah, we'll break down. So, from Dute-chan to Caster Semenya controversies related to gender identity in sports. So, recently in June 19th to restrict the participation of trans athletes to basically no one, and create a separate but equal trans sporting thing. Yep. Separate but equal. Always a good sign when they effectively have a policy that can be described like that. Separate but, yeah. Fuck FINA. Dute won laurels for the country, also holds national record, and hailing from the village of Odisha, she has won laurels for the country and holds national record for the women's 100 meter. Nonetheless, she was involved with a huge controversy regarding her gender identity after she was dropped from the 2014 Commonwealth Games, stating that she was ineligible to compete as a female athlete. The sprinter didn't lose hope and showed her frightening spirit. She went to the court of arbitration because they like to control the body, so especially non-white people. Yeah, minor athletes. And Caster Semenya, a big person too. Just the way people are kicked out is just inexcusably wrong. Appalling abuse. Australia to push minors to set up a register of offenders. Australia will push its mining industry to set up a register of sexual harassment perpetrators to help rein in abuse, a cabinet minister said, after a state government report detailed cases of horrifying and appalling behavior against women. The release of the report on Thursday followed a year-long investigation into concerns about a culture of sexism and bullying that fueled public anger about workplace conditions last year, leading to what has been called Australia's Me Too movement. Hopefully not led by an unfortunately transphobic person. Anyways. Any case of sexual harassment is one too many, said Resource Minister Madeleine King in a statement, which added that the federal government would work with Western Australia to support all 24 recommendations in the report. Australian government stands ready to help the resources sector stamp out sexual harassment, which has no place in the modern workplace, she added. Texting lewd material, requests for sexual favors in return for a permanent job, and sexual assaults were some of the things in that workplace. It's bad. Australia. Muslims accuse Twitter of failing to take action against accounts to incite hatred. I know, it's shocked that there's Islamophobia on Twitter. So the Muslim community living in Australia has accused Twitter of failing to take action against accounts that incite hatred on its platform, citing a manifesto of extremists who killed 77 people in Norway in 2011. An advocacy group for the community has lodged a complaint against Twitter with the Queensland Human Rights Commission. The group has claimed that as a publisher, Twitter is responsible for content posted by far-right account related to the incident in Norway. Comments on the account include Islam as quote-unquote the most violent and sexually perverse cult. Quote-unquote, Ramadan means killing infidels, which is not what Ramadan is about at all, but whatever. It alleges that Quran should be referred to as the quote-unquote terrorist handbook. Also, I mean, it's all not true. I don't know what they mean by sexually perverse. It's not... Like, have you read the Bible? Probably not. These comments have been taken down by Twitter despite several requests, and the Muslim community in Australia has called the platform discriminatory for refusing to take action against hateful content. Yeah, I mean, they only suspended an account that just posted a swastika using pride flags. Engaging with Twitter for years, with really shocking samples, pictures of Muslim men with guns being shoved into their mouths, and pictures of Muslims depicted as monkeys and cavemen chasing people with knives. Rita Jabari Markwell, lawyer for the network, told Guardian, "We want Twitter to take responsibility for their platform. It shouldn't be left up to ordinary people to monitor their platform for them," she added. In a verdict last year, Australia's High Court found that media companies could be liable for third-party comments on their social media posts in the landmark Dylan Fuller case. So, yes, there's a lot of news. I'm not done yet. Too much news? Probably. I can't help myself. Colombia's shift to the left. A new pink tide in Latin America. Now, there has been a lot of, there has been more than one, I believe, socialist government that has been elected into office in Latin America and then shut down by the CIA. So, I don't know how successful this will be. It depends on how motivated the CIA is to cause and to try to create a more a country more friendly to American imperialism. Sunrising, a new day for Colombians, especially those who Vice President-elect Francia Marquez called the quote-unquote nobodies: women, indigenous communities, Afro-Colombians, LGBTQ+, working class, disabled people, and all the others who have been disproportionately affected by poverty, state violence, discrimination, and environmental destruction in the country. On Sunday, former Bogota Mayor Gustavo Petro and his candidate for vice president, environmental activist Marquez, made history by securing more than 50% of votes in Colombia's presidential election and saying themselves to form the country's first ever left-wing progressive government. Never enough news, yes. But yeah, it's not accidental, but I'm glad it's happening. So, French court blocks Grenoble's bid to allow full-body swimsuit. Top administrative court upholds a government challenge against a move that revived France's intense quote-unquote debate on Islam. In other words, France's Islamophobia. This has been a long road coming. I've heard about France's Islamophobia for a long time. There's been people have not been allowed to wear any sort of head or face covering in school, women or whatnot in France. There have been like move after move after move. There's been tons of Islamophobia for years. The top French court has blocked the bid to allow full-body swimsuits for women at municipal pools in the city of Grenoble, upholding a government's challenge against a move that revived France's intense... It keeps saying debate on Islam. I'm just going to call it what it is, Islamophobia. Very selective exemption to the rules to satisfy religious demands risks affecting the proper functioning of public services and equal treatment of the users. So, for a bit more things, require public pools in the southeastern city require that women wear either a one-piece suit, a bikini, and that men wear bathing shorts. So people like risks affecting the proper functioning of public services and equal treatment of their users. This is you controlling what people can, the state controlling what people can wear, and specifically going against Islamic women from being able to wear what they want to wear in a public swimsuit, like in a public setting. This is Islamophobia. This is anti-Islamic rhetoric from France. Led by Mayor Eric Piolle, a member of the Green Party, the city of Grenoble in May changed its swimming rules to allow all types of bathing suits, not just traditional swimming costumes for men and trunks for, swimming costumes for women and trunks for men, which were mandated before. All we want is for women and men to be able to dress how they want, Peel said at the time. Now, obviously, all we want is to allow everyone to dress how they want is a slightly better way of phrasing that, but yeah. It's sort of like, I mean, Billy Bragg might have updated the lyrics of his version of International with relation to trans stuff, since Billy Bragg is an activist. Stuff can be better. People try to do the right thing, which is what's important. Tuesday's court decision was a victory for the law against separatism, for secularism, and beyond that for the whole republic. Interior Minister Gerard Donism, referring to the law introduced last year to counter quote unquote Islamist radicalism. It's essentially, like I said, anti-Islamic, and Islam gets targeted the most because there's a lot more non-white Islamic people. Attempts by several local mayors in the south of France to ban the type of swimsuit known as the burkini on Mediterranean beaches in the summer of 2016 kicked off the first firestorm around the bathing suit. The restrictions were eventually overturned for being discriminatory. Burkinis are banned in French state-run pools for hygiene reasons, non-religious grounds, while swimmers are not under any obligation to hide their religion while bathing. Yeah, that's not... I don't believe that's a hygiene. Germany. And I will promise to at least try not to do a horrible German accent. But Germany allows transgender footballers to choose to play for men's or women's team. Germany's Football Federation says trans, intersex, and non-binary players can decide themselves whether to play in men's or women's sports team. Or men's and women's teams, at least with soccer, or football. The new regulation for gender non-conforming players with the civil status diverse or unspecified was passed on Thursday. It will come into effect next season and will apply to youth and amateur football as well as futsal. It applies to transgender players who can now switch at a self-determined time or remain initially in the team which they've been playing previously. The Federation said in a statement, which makes sense. This is actually how it should be for youth sports. While sporting activity does not affect the health of the person while they're taking the medication, the person can take part in the game. But the new regulation excludes doping relevance. Sabine Mamisch, who oversees women's and girls football at the Deutsche Football League, or Deutsche Football, what BB, whatever. Fußball, says there has long been need for clarification. The state and regional associations, but also relevant people at grassroots level, have been signaling for a long time that there are uncertainties in how to accommodate trans, intersex, and non-binary players, Mamish said. Therefore, they very much welcome the introduction of a national comprehensive rule on the right to play. New rules for gender non-conforming players have already been tested at a local level in Berlin since 2019. And experience has shown that this does not jeopardize the integrity of the competition. After all people have different physical strength and abilities that only lead to success together in a team, regardless of gender. That's the thing about team sports. They're not simple. And all sports are not simple. But yeah. Tens of thousands gather in Rome for the return of Pride celebrations. So, thousands of people gather in the Italian capital on Saturday to celebrate the return of Rome Pride, the first after the COVID lockdown. Fabrizio Tergnoli, a tailor from Rome, I apologize for bad pronunciation, said the event was of utmost importance to Italian society today. Why have underneath mine, why do we need to say, you're a man, a woman, Hebrew, Christian, or Muslim? I'm a human being, and I'm here to demonstrate for these rights, Tergnoli said. Another participant, Angelo Rinaldi from Rome, said, there is a long road ahead for sure, but we'll keep fighting until we get what we want. So, India. By the way, there are several countries. We are up to I. We are up to the letter I. So, Tista Setalvad, I can't pronounce names well, who fought for 2002 Gujarat riot victims arrested. Rights groups say the rest of Setalvad, who campaigned to get justice for the 2002 Gujarat riot victims, will have a chilling effect. So, United Nations expert has joined global human rights groups in expressing concern over the arrest of Indian rights defender Tista Setalvad, a day after the country's Supreme Court upheld the findings of a special investigation team that cleared Prime Minister Narendra Modi of complicity in 2002 anti-Muslim riots. Because there is a lot of Islamophobia in India, there's been a long history of that. That's why India and Pakistan were not able to stay as one country, which it originally was set up that way, but they yeah. Lord reiterated that defending human rights was not a crime, as she urged the Indian authorities to release Setalvad and put an end to her persecution by the Indian state. Police have accused her of committing forgery and fabricating evidence, among other charges. Setalvad said, according to a complaint shared by her aide with Al Jazeera, that her detention was illegal and the police assaulted her during the raid. So, India's been getting fascier, which is kind of a problem with a lot of countries. So, Roe v. Wade overturned, a comparative analysis of Indian and American abortion laws. I'm put this here. I was 50-50 there. I put this near the start or here, since it deals with both India and America and a comparison. So, obviously we know what the Supreme Court did, which is awful, and made it very state. In India, if it wasn't done in good faith to save a woman's life, Section 312 of the Indian Penal Code makes intentionally causing a miscarriage a crime. The Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, a law passed by the Parliament in 1971, gave licensed medical professionals permission to perform abortions in specified predetermined situations. Doctors who performed abortions in line with the law were exempt from prosecution under Section 312 IPC. Women do not have an unrestricted right to abortion under the law under specific conditions, and to a certain extent, abortion is permissible based on a medical opinion, which that sounds awful. Since the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act was passed in 1971, abortion has been permitted in India under a variety of circumstances. The act was changed to give women access to safe and authorized abortion procedures. In order to prevent the use of brand new medical abortion medicine, that sounds weird. Mifepristone and misoprostol at the time. The abortion law was briefly modified in 2002. The MTP Act 1917 was, I think that meant 1971. I think that's a typo. Anyways, was ultimately revised in 2021. On March 16th, 2021, the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Amendment Bill 2021 received approval from President Rajya Sabha. On March 17th, 2020, the Lok Sabha passed the bill. I think some of these are typos, but all women may choose to end their pregnancies up to 20 weeks if their doctor recommends it. However, special categories of women, such as survivors of sexual abuse, minors, rape victims, incest, and disabled women, can seek termination up to 24 weeks. If a medical board also of specialist doctors decides there's a fetal disability, there's no maximal gestation for abortion, because eugenics type attitude. Need to get rid of those disabled kids. Anyways. To avoid while a woman can get an abortion without the agreement of her spouse, she cannot be forced to have one. Okay, so there's... India might actually have better laws than us, which is sad and frustrating. Tens of thousands of people attend Pride Parade in Tel Aviv on Friday, celebrating the LGBTQ community and calling for equality in the largest annual gathering of its kind in the Middle East. Israel is a rare bastion of tolerance. Not really, but okay. The LGBTQ community in the conservative Middle East, where homosexuality is widely considered taboo and banned in some places. Homosexuals serve openly in Israeli military and parliament, and the current health minister is openly gay. Yet they have not achieved full equality. The ultra-Orthodox Jewish parties, which have considerable influence on matters of religion and state, oppose homosexuality as a violation of religious law, as do other religious groups in Israel. It actually, yeah, I wouldn't call it a bastion thing. Oh, I must have misread this one. It's about campaign spending in Kenya. Look, I was tired last night when I looked these up. Beirut Pride billboard vandalized as ministers order security forces to crush LGBTQ events. On Saturday, Beirut Pride said within hours of its blooming billboard flowering, people tore some of the thousands of flowers forming LGBTQ pride flag on it. So obviously this was after the tearing vandalization. We raised the billboard in the streets of Beirut, Lebanon. If you're not familiar with where Beirut is, or Beirut. I made the T silent for no good reason. Anyways, billboard was placed in Tassin, Ashrafi and slowly bloomed with flowers across June with the line, "Love always blooms" underneath, which is adorable and sweet. But within hours, the billboard was destroyed by people who believe we don't deserve equal rights to them, the nonprofit said. Among them includes Lebanon's Interior Minister, Bassam Malawi. Just the day before the billboard was vandalized, he instructed the country's security forces to immediately take the necessary measures to prevent any type of celebration, meeting, or gathering of LGBTQ people during the Pride Month. But now it seems that people celebrating diversity and waving Confederate flags now fall under their because of the order. Well, he issued or after seeing calls on social media to organize parties and events promoting homosexuality in Lebanon, and following communication from religious figures rejecting the spread of the phenomenon he said. Every year since the first march in 2017 in Beirut Pride has faced hostility and threats of violence from conservative religious sects and authorities. Which, I mean, that's classic Pride. So, 135 doctors file legal protest calling for review of Malta's abortion ban after U.S. women's ordeal. 135 women in Malta have signed a legal protest calling for review of the country's blanket ban on abortion, demanding empathy following the ordeal of an American tourist who suffered an incomplete miscarriage while visiting the country. Andrea Prudente was 16 weeks pregnant, was reportedly denied a request to terminate her non-viable pregnancy because of Malta's strict abortion ban, even though she was at risk of infection or heavy bleeding. Late on Thursday, her private insurance organized her medical evacuation to Spain, where she was being treated. Medical scenario like this happens 2 to 3 women each year in Malta. A Mediterranean island is one of the few Western states that has a total ban. It's carte blanche on abortion or standard right to carry. Yeah, it's a problem to do. Just a full ban, random ban on abortion, just because, pregnancy is complicated and can kill people. So, police release the name of suspect after Pride shooting leaves 2 dead and 21 injured. There's mass shooting on Pride in Oslo. Norwegian police have arrested 42-year-old suspect Zaniar Madapur in the June 25th shooting at the London pub gay bar in Oslo, which resulted in 2 deaths and 21 injuries. Police say that Madapur has Islamic extremist ties. First they say stuff like that. It's always the yeah. U.S. and Norwegian government officials have denounced the horrific terrorist shooting, but the suspect was arrested quickly and faces charges. Tens of thousands of people take place in Warsaw's Pride March, which the Ukrainian LGBT community has been invited to join due to the war. Hundreds take Oslo's streets in spontaneous pride parade after mass shooting. At least 21 teens died after celebrating at a South African tavern. Police in Police in South Africa have launched an investigation after dozens of teens died during a night out at a township tavern. 21 people died in the tavern in East London on Saturday, but the cause of death is still unknown. The teens are believed to be students who were celebrating the end of their high school exams. Police said there were no visible wounds on the body, so they've ruled out a stampede as a possible cause. Autopsies will determine deaths that could be linked to poisoning, police said. It's one of those things where, South Africa, teens dead, I assumed racism. At this point in time, it's inconclusive. Spain takes first step towards letting trans people self-determine legal gender. Spain has approved a draft of a new gender recognition law, which would allow trans people to update their legal gender marker without the need for hormones or surgery. Those between 14 and 16 would require parental or guardian consent to change gender. 12 and 14 require authorization from a judge. But if you're over 16, you can legally change your name and gender on their identity documents through a system of self-determination. Spain has kind of been rocking it. What with the days off for allowing days off for having a period and this. That's kind of cool. Philippines, Fuchsia and Ravana wins trans pageant in Thailand. Miss International Queen on Saturday at a contest Thailand billed as the world's largest and most popular trans pageant. 27-year-old business owner beat 22 other contestants for the crown, with second and third place going to contestants from Colombia and France, respectively. My first message to everyone is to spread love and peace and unity, because that is the most important thing we do as of the moment and what's happening in most of the world now, Ravana said, who wore a glittery silver evening gown. So, yeah, pageant stuff. But, I mean, look, there's a lot of the news is grim and frustrating. Like this, Istanbul Pride. Dozens arrested as police break up LGBTQ march in Turkey. Police broke up a crowd gathered for the Pride March in Istanbul on Sunday, arresting dozens, including journalists, in an alleged attempt at preventing them from recording the event. Even before the rally began, riot police raided several bars in the Cihangir district near Taksim and arrested people, quote-unquote, at random, according to AFP photographer, the news agency reported. Bülent Kilik, a veteran award-winning photographer with experience in conflict zones, was handcuffed behind his back, his shirt torn off, and taken away with others in a police van. He had already been arrested last year under the same circumstances. Arrest came after the authorities issued a 7-day ban on gatherings in open and closed spaces leading up to Sunday in an attempt to prevent pride marches from taking place. Earlier in June, Turkish police in Istanbul arrested 11 LGBTQ plus activists who gathered to celebrate the beginnings of Pride Month. The activists claimed they were tortured and published images of heavy bruising on wrists and legs. Yet on Sunday, hundreds of protesters waving rainbow flags began to gather in the streets adjacent to the famous Taksim Square, which is entirely closed to the public. After the spectacular march in 2014 of more than 100,000 people in Istanbul, the Turkish authorities have banned it year after year officially for what they allege security reasons. Last year, police also cracked down on the event, using tear gas to disperse crowds and detaining dozens as hundreds came together to oppose the ban. The incident sparked protests across the Mediterranean country, including the capital, Ankara. War crimes against LGBTQ people in Ukraine are worse than people can imagine. Russian forces are hunting down gay men, raping and castrating them. We spoke with war crimes investigator to find out what's happening and what's being done to get justice for the victims. War crimes are a barbaric byproduct of conflict and combat. In an era of near-incessant news coverage, the phrase became a catch-all for heinous acts committed by soldiers and contractors in military theaters across the globe. While the war continues and the toll of terrorism mounts, Ukrainian authorities have begun a full-scale investigation in the multitude of reports by civilian population in Ukraine against members of the Russian army. It's the blatant anti-LGBTQ laws in Russia are not helping, I'm sure. Not a celebration in midst of war, Kiev's Pride Parade held in Warsaw. So Ukraine's Kiev was held in Warsaw. I may have mentioned this already. So I'm just going to skip to the last story. How football is helping Yemenis cope with the prolonged war. Unofficial tournaments and street football, where many Yemenis are finding solace amid the continuing conflict. Amid the brutal conflict in Yemen that has killed more than 370,000 people, Yemenis have turned to their long-running love for football to help them cope with the devastation, violence, and humanitarian crisis ravaging their country. Through unofficial football tournaments held across different villages and cities, Yemenis boys and men have been coming together to try and live a vague semblance of normal existence. On makeshift football fields covered with nothing but sand and rocks, amateurs play display their skills, cheering audience. There are no seats. The crowd ranging from 800 to 1,500 usually stands on its feet for the duration of the match, as shouting and singing to spur on their team players. But, yeah. I can't words. I've lost my words. That was the last story. But I've also lost my words. I'm going to end it. There's going to be a break. I'm going to retitle everything and then get on to some League of Legends, because I played the worst game possible. I'm just mean to League of Legends.
Justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Sex and race, because they are easy, visible differences, have been the primary ways of organizing human beings into superior and inferior groups, and into the cheap labor on which this system still depends.
No, you all tell me to go and hide my tail between my legs. I have been beaten. I have had my nose broken. I have been thrown in jail. I have lost my job. I have lost my apartment for gay liberation. And you all treat me this way? What the fuck's wrong with you all?
We want no more segregation. We will accept no more discussion of segregation. And I would appreciate it if you would stop shaking your head in agreement when I don't think you understand what we are talking about.
Freedom is merely privilege extended unless enjoyed by one and all.
All we are doing with this bill is allowing two people who love each other to have that love recognised by way of marriage. That is all we are doing.
I speak not for myself, but for those without voice can be heard. Those who have fought for their rights, their right to live in peace.
Sometimes, especially in this body, I feel as though if Christ himself walked through these doors and said what he said thousands of years ago, he would be maligned as a radical and rejected from these doors.